Got the Maxitrak 1.5 inch Allchin. Going to give you a little run through on how you should steam it up. This one's fresh out the box. It's not completely standard, it's had a couple of little additions added to it. Plate set, transfers and the whistle valve. But anyway, we thought we would run through it, show you how you should be running your model. So it's nice and simple to use. You're going to start by filling with your water, filling up your lubricator and putting gas into the gas tank. And from that point, then we can start getting it running. You can use only steam oil in your lubricator. We recommend 6 to 80 grade. You can use something a little bit thinner if you want to. It's no problem. Plenty of steam oil in there. Fill it by taking the safety valve out. I'm actually going to fill it with warm water that I've already pre-boiled. The reason for that is you can use quite a lot of gas, quite a lot, maybe even a whole tank's worth of burner just to get that water up to boil. It's a large boiler and there's a lot of volume of water in there. So we'll aim to put about half a boiler of water in it. That should give us something like about half-hour run, should we need to run that long. You will have to gas up the tank once or twice, but we're going to run through all of that. So I'm going to boil up some water. We'll put some hot water straight into her. That can just be sitting there and then we can fill up the gas. So I've just taken this shell off the top of this big end bearing and there's paint on this inside edge which has given us a bit too much clearance. So what we need to do is just remove that paint. If you get a bit of wear and tear on the model, this is where it will be. You can also take a little bit of this bearing off, which will make the hole smaller, get rid of any knock that you got on that big end. So we're lucky enough to have this big flat surface plate, but any machinery will usually have a nice flat surface. You want to use some kind of wet or dry, pretty smooth, 1500 or 2000 wet or dry, which I've got mounted here. And all we do is just rub that surface. Straight away you can see the paint's gone off there now. So it only needs a little bit. We'll pop that back on. See if it's taken up any of the gap. Don't want to over tighten it. Yeah, that's taken up the gap nicely. So there should be no knock on this big end. So I'm going to gas it up while I'm waiting for the kettle to boil. We're using Coleman's gas. Really you want to be using butane propane mix. 70-30, 70 butane, 30 propane. It's a good all-round gas. It shouldn't freeze too much in warm or cold weather. But this gas tank is a big tank, so there's a tendency to think you're going to fill it in a couple of seconds and you really won't. You need to hold this gas on there for at least a minute, sometimes even 2. So what I'll do is we'll just gas it up and hopefully we can get it completely full, and you'll see the difference between gassing and full, then you'll know that you're completely full. This is a standard Maxitrak gas filler valve. Hold it down on the valve. This is the boring bit. Just hold it on there. The way you can tell when it's full is you start getting gas and liquid blowing back out the top of the valve at you. This is quite a small can. Usually we go for something a bit bigger, but we'll probably use all of this can. Should be filling in a pretty well ventilated area, and also absolutely no naked flames or you'll end up in a fireball. See, even that amount of time was still not completely full. There's probably enough there to get it up to steam and run it. Or if we need to, you can re-gas it again very quickly. This is the beauty of gas. Turn the burners out, re-gas, turn it back on again. Definitely need a funnel for this bit, putting the water in. Otherwise you'll pour it absolutely everywhere. I mean, everything's designed to get wet and covered in steam and oil, so it's no big deal, but you can make a bit of a mess if you're doing it on your kitchen table. So we put a funnel in. We're going to go for about half a gauge of water. If you do a full gauge of water, i.e. a completely full boiler, you've probably got about an hour's worth of running. It's surprising what volume you'll get in this boiler. So yeah, we'll give her a quick fill up. I think what I would be tempted to do is get a cheap kettle, no frills, something that you can use for your rainwater, and then you can boil up rainwater in that. Don't get it mixed up with your normal kitchen kettle. But it certainly gives it a much quicker start time if you already put hot water into it rather than just putting a vast amount of cold water in. You see, that was a whole kettle, 1.7 litres, and I'm only at about a third of the glass there. So while I'm waiting for my water to boil up again, notice we've got a little drip here. So we've got a little drip coming out the bottom of the water gauge. This is pretty easy to sort out. These are brand new fittings, everything's new. So all you need to do is just tighten up this nut. You want to go probably quarter turn. Yeah, so all I'm doing is, I'm not going too crazy. If you do these up really tight, you're just going to break the glass. What you want, this logo hasn't actually been run, so we need a bit of heat through everything. What we tend to do is steam it, and if you've still got a little drip or a little bit of a leak, you can just give these, just an eighth of a turn, just to tighten up that seal. I'm going to put some more water in as well. I think I'm going to get to about halfway, so just a little bit more. Yeah, got about half a gauge, yeah, that should do us fine. So once you've got your fill level right, get your safety valve back on. Doesn't need to be terrifically tight. Okay, I think we're pretty much ready to go for setting up the burners. So the door actually has a gap underneath. You can put a screwdriver in and pull that front door off if you want to take the smoke box door off. Really helps the first few times you're running it, just to make sure the burners are working properly. What we've found actually is that you end up damaging this door a little bit if you're not careful. So there's a big hole in the bottom here, which is a big oxygen source for the burners. And actually we put a pin up inside here and knock the door out from the inside. So you can come right up through that saddle. You have to hit it with a hammer at the right angle. You can just knock that door out. Door comes off complete with its heat shield. Obviously put your hand in front of it, because if you're doing that on the floor and it hits the floor, you're going to scratch the paintwork. But it does give you access to have a look inside, see what's going on with these burners. This is our ex-showroom display model, so I don't think it's had any setup done on it. Plus we keep nicking bits off it. Every time we want to repair another one, bits get taken. So I'm pretty sure the burners aren't going to be set up on here. So we're going to set these up now, show you how the burners should be working properly. Nothing. This is great. Yes, as I suspected, these burners have been messed around with and they're not set up at all. So we can run through the setup procedure. Yours should already be tested, but should you in the future change a gas, or you try running from winter to summer, there's a lot of changes, then we can just run through a few little things that will actually help you to set these burners up. It's really important that they're burning properly. If they don't burn properly, you will not get it into steam very well. So you've got basically two long flue burners that run down two tubes in the centre of the boiler, and they should be making a real good blasting sound, pretty much like a couple of blow torches. So it's very quick to work out by hearing and by looking if they're not working properly. So these aren't even taking. Flames at the end of the tube, that is not correct. I'm not getting any pop back onto the burner itself. Yeah, they're really not right. So I'll start the procedure. I'll take the jets out, make sure the jets are nice and clean, put them back in, reset the oxygen, and make sure that the diffusers are in the right positions in the burners as well. Hopefully we can get a nice clean burn, get these burners working as they should. It's really easy to remove the jets and the pipes. You've got one nut here on the gas tank itself. Make sure the gas is turned off. This is a copper pipe. So you just push the pipe forward and they'll wiggle straight out. So that'd be our problem. We haven't even got any jets on it. So no wonder it wasn't working. So the jets themselves actually come out of that holders nice and easy. Little spanner on there, undo it. And here's your jet. Should you have any blockages in there, the first thing you want to do, give it a blast of compressed air. And then secondly, because these holes are so tiny, fractions of a millimetre, the only way you can really clean them, we found, is getting a bit of wire, delaminating a piece of wire, taking individual strands of the wire, then you can actually poke them in the tiny hole, clear out those holes. It's quite a hard job to do. There we go, I'm in. And the last thing I'll do is give it a good blast of compressed air. Yeah, so just a little blast of compressed air. It's the best way to clean them out. Once you've got both of the jets out, can give the holders a good blast out with air as well. I mean, it's questionable whether you can get any dirt from the tank through the pipes. It's usually pretty good, but you'll be amazed what stops them working. It's also imperative you have a really good oxygen seal on this jet when it goes back in. So what I'll do, wrap a little bit of PTFE around there, and then I'll screw them in nice and tight. That should give us a nice tight seal. Screw them in nice and tight. Good. And lastly, once I've got them all in place, you can actually puff a little bit of compressed air down the end. And this does seem a bit daft, but the only way I can feel it is to put it onto my skin and just feel if I've got something coming out of the jets. It's very hard to feel it with your fingers, but with soft skin, I can just feel a little puff of air coming through. I think they're pretty clean. Yep. I'm pretty happy with that. To reinstate them, all they do is slide into the jet burner holders in the back end of the burner. And then you re-bend down your copper pipe to get that back in position. It's a bit tight in there, but get that into position. And then you just do that little nut up. And I'll make sure you haven't got any gas escaping from here. Also, this is a good opportunity, if these aren't right up against the burners, then actually you can stretch that copper pipe a little bit, put a bit of tension on them so they're getting really pushed into the hone. You don't want any oxygen to get around these gaps. You want the oxygen to be forced down these holes. Then you can control your mix nicely. So make sure they're really nice and home. Do this up nice and tight. Sounds a lot better. So the last things for us to consider now is, you might have seen I was moving that oxygen adjuster. So I'm going to set the oxygen adjusters roughly half a hole on the burners, and then I'm going to light it. We'll have a look at what's happening at the front. I'm using a 3mm nut runner just to loosen the screws so I can move these little shoulders, roughly get my oxygen about half. There. Just tweak them up to hold them in place. They don't have to be very tight, it's only holding that little shoulder. So we're showing about half a hole on each one. Still got plenty of water in there, so we can light the burners and play around with that, not have to worry about heating up the boiler too much. Theoretically, you shouldn't really light the burners without water in the boiler, because you can get those tubes really hot if it's working properly and you leave it. So better if you've got water in there. If you mess around with the burners, you won't do any damage to that boiler. So the lighting procedure when you've got the door off is really easy. Turn your gas on, light it up. And then we look down the hole. And actually, those burners that you see there with the two half moons are working perfectly. What you don't want is, you don't want any fire at the end of the tubes. You don't want any orange flames. And when I turn it up, you should see it blast out the end like a proper blowtorch. That's the burners working absolutely correctly. You can hear them, they've got a bit of a roar to them. There's plenty of heat there. They're literally like a couple of blowtorches. Try not to lose my eyebrows. Yeah, those are correct. Now you see why you got the heat shield on the door, because you will get a bit of burn in that smoke box. Okay, I'm pretty happy those burners are well adjusted. Now, if you find on the tube of the boiler you get a whole blue flame filling the end of the tube, that's incorrect. It means that the gas is running right the way out the tube and it's burning inside the smoke box. What you want to be able to see is look down the tubes and you've got 2 half moons of blue. If you've got 2 half moons of blue, that means that the fire is sitting on the burners where it should be. The burners are surprisingly long. They're about half the length of the boiler. They're a really long burner. And they also have a twisted diffuser that runs up the centre. Because it's a long burner, if you don't have the diffuser, you can get that real kind of whistle to the burners, which can be quite annoying. The diffuser mixes the oxygen and the gas before it then goes through to the burn. So I can show you the diffusers on this one. I do have to take the jets back out again, but I can show you those as well. You can have a look at them because they are an important part of the model. I'm going to show you the diffusers in the burner because they are an important piece and they can mess the burners up a little bit if they're incorrect. So we'll get one out and we'll have a look at it and I'll explain how it works and what it should be looking like. All I've done is removed the gas jets again. The 2 burners are too long to take out of the boiler. You can't take them out even in this space here. That's how long they are. But you can tip the model up and knock the diffusers out of the burner. And if they're being stubborn, which it looks like they are, you can actually hook the diffuser out with a little bit of wire, which I think is what I'm going to do. Okay, so if you put the model right on its back, sometimes with a little bit of persuasion, here they come. So I've got one here. This is the diffuser. And all it really does is add a mix to the oxygen and the gas as it goes down the burner, to give you a much more even burn on the burner, plus also stops it howling a bit. What I have found in the past is actually if you tighten these up, in other words, you make the twist slightly tighter, sometimes it can change the way that the burner works. So if you're having a burner that's particularly prone to squealing or being noisy, or is not burning correctly, it's always worth getting these diffusers out. And I can also, on the end, you can see this one is straight. You can put a little hook on the end as well. Put it into a vise, or just use a pair of pliers. It's only thin stainless. You can add a little kind of whoop at the end of it, which I find helps as well. They get very hot inside here, and they can scale up. And if you get lots of scale over these if you've been running maybe 2 or 3 times a week for a month or 2, you can find that some of these bits of scale comes off and into the burner. And if that's the case, you can take them, clean them, give them a quick blast off. Once again, your old friend compressed air, a little blast in the burner. Get all that crud out. You don't actually have to have a sandblaster to do this job. You could do it with a little bit of wet or dry or a wire brush. All I'm doing is just cleaning off any debris, because at some point that debris is going to flake off and it's going to get caught in your toast rack burner parts and it will slow that burner down a little bit. So if you're taking it out, keep this clean. It's got to be the best way of approaching it. But also look at how straight it is. It doesn't really matter once it gets in there, it heats up, but I tend to just straighten them up by eye before I put them back in. So should you need to get it back out again, makes life a bit easier to get it out. I'm going to pop that back in. It does have this little hole in the end here. Idea being, you can hook a little bit of 16th stainless steel in there and you can pull that out. The other thing that's worth considering is they move inside this burner. So if you were to tip the model up onto its back, theoretically both of them can come all the way to the jets. So if you look through those holes and you can see that little stainless steel diffuser, it's in the wrong position. It's going to impede your gas flow or oxygen flow. So just push them in a little bit. Don't ram them in, but just push them in so they're out the way of these holes. So, well, while I've been messing around with this, even though we gassed it, this gas tank is actually quite warm now. When you first gas the gas tank, it can get pretty cold. And the biggest issue with keeping a good flow of gas is having that gas turn from liquid to gas, and for that you need warmth. When the model's running, you get plenty of warmth from that boiler and the burners, and it will warm that whole tank. This is why it's quite hard to do a cold start on a traction engine like this. And 9 times out of 10 it's to do with that gas flow. You're just not getting a really decent burn. So I've put the pipes back on, I'm going to stick the door back on, and we're going to spark her up. Well, before I do that, I shall put some more gas in. Excellent. So you should be able to hear the burners when you turn the gas on, and you can tell if they're really working because they roar. If they're not roaring, they're not correct. Take the door off, have a look, see what's going on. So the way to light it is actually up through the hole that we spoke about earlier. Sometimes they do make a little bit of a pop when they light, so just be aware of it. What you've also got to look out for, if you've got a lot of gas floating about, you can get a little flame out the bottom. So just keep your eye on it. If you see a flame there, just give it a blowout. Otherwise you'll end up just putting black up the sides of the boiler. It won't do any damage, but so we'll give this a light. You can hear it's got a proper roar to it. You can hear the burners are making a noise. That is not a good burn. That is on very low. You want it to really roar. You can hear the oxygen getting drawn through the back. That kind of hissing noise. And a really good roar to those burners. What can happen is you get all of this freezes up, which will really restrict that gas flow. I'm going to show you a little trick that we use to get you around that. What you need is our old friend warm water and a cloth. You have a round propane tank in the back here and a square tender, which means you've got gaps on both sides. And what you can do is just get a cloth, and I'm squishing it into those holes. It's basically surrounding that tank with an old rag. So the rag is now on both sides of that tank. And now what you can do, get your old friend warm water. If you pour it down the back of the tender, it will sit on that cloth and it will warm that whole tank. and it would just stop you from getting any freezing up on that tank. At least when you're doing cold starts, it will really increase the gas flow. Bear in mind the water does go everywhere, so once again you don't want to be doing this on your kitchen table, but if you're outside, at least the first time when you're starting from cold, it's a good way of keeping that gas pressure up. So while we're waiting for that to warm up, all we do is run round with oil and oil all the mechanical parts. You're looking at oil anything that moves, particularly everything on the crankshaft, big ends, the little ends, any moving part could do with oil on it, especially when it's all new. Everything is very tight. Get plenty on your eccentrics. You can already hear that gas is falling off a little bit. It's not got that same kind of roar that it had before. So I'll get me some nice hot water. You should be able to hear the difference when the hot water goes into the tank. That's your roar that you're after. Plenty of gas. Like I said, also once it's all going, everything is warmed. That happens naturally. You get a lot of heat from the boiler, transfers up through the horn plates into that gas tank. It does it anyway. It's just really when it's a cold start, you just can't keep that gas level really flowing from that big tank. Got a little bit of spent gas burning on the front there. Turn the gas down a little bit if you get a burn at the bottom. You can hear there's a massive difference. If you haven't got that super roaring from the burners, they're not going to heat it up quickly. Also having a little look in the back here, a couple of little steam leaks. Nothing too untoward, it just gives these a little tweak up. Once you've used the model a few times, all of these little leaks, bits and bobs like small steam leaks, they all disappear. You just got to, the first few times you're using it, just make sure everything's nice and tight. quite slow, these pressure gauges in showing pressure. Probably not going to show till you get to about 20, but just stick with it. All the safety valves are set correctly, so we are losing a little bit of steam on this one. I think I didn't put the copper washer on the safety valve when I screwed it back in again, but we shall carry on as the gas has kind of fallen off again. Yeah, I think I'm actually out of gas. I'm just about out. So you need to gas up while you're steaming. You can just turn the gas off, make sure the fire is completely out, and then you can regas.
Go on then. Right, 327 pounds.
Yeah, I think you get a better feel from the gas from the longer, taller, thinner cans. I've not used one of these little short, stout ones before. The long ones certainly seem to fill your tank up a bit quicker. I'm not getting to the point where this is all spitting out, which means it'll be completely full. So I've regassed again.
Thank you, sir. Have a light down. That's lovely. Thanks again.
That's what I thought. No, I'm not entirely sure I like these little stubbies. I prefer the longer ones.
It should be hissing, shouldn't it?
Yeah. Don't try that at home, kids. You haven't got any more gas tanks anywhere, have you, Mr. P?
Got some at home.